Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.7.3 in my RP-1 Realism Overhaul Career Mode playthrough. And what we have here on the pad is the Bumper-WAC rocket, which is not quite right. It's not quite accurate to what the historical Bumper-WAC was, but that's not super important right now. 3, 2, 1, fire up that engine, get that spun up to maximum thrust, and then release, and off we go. So yeah, the Bumper-WAC rocket was a short-range ballistic test vehicle that the U.S. put together, where they basically stuck a V2 rocket underneath a Wack Corporal, and this is kind of my approximation of that. What we're trying to do with this is we're trying to get way downrange, way downrange. I have two contracts right now. First, I am trying to do some downrange distance launch vehicle development, which wants me to get to 360 kilometers downrange with 80 units of payload, which I have stashed up here. Boom. We have to get to 140 kilometers, so it can't just be sideways. I also have the big one, the big downrange milestone of 3,000 kilometers, which does not require any payload, but does require that you get to 140 kilometers up and 3,000 kilometers sideways. So we started off this launch with this guy tilting over about 3.5 degrees, which I think that pitch gets us just about what we want, because you'll see that we're now at about 45 degrees, and that is the optimum angle to... Hold on. And actually, I don't need to worry too much about that. That's the optimum angle to get the most distance out of this. So we disconnect. We have a solid rocket booster on the end here, which we are going to fire in 3, 2, 1, go. And then we're going to hot stage, and there we go. Fabulous. Yeah, so what just happened there is I separated from the booster, our R2 rocket, which was just painted. It hasn't been changed in any other way. Then I fired the solid rocket booster and then hot staged this Aerobee engine, which is the AJ1027. And that made it so that we didn't have to worry too much about the ullage, and now it is on its way onwards and upwards, still at about a 45 degree pitch, which is perfect. Like I said, that gets you your best ballistic trajectory, because we are not going to be able to get orbital or even really all that close to it. What we're trying to do right now is just get as far downrange with this rocket as we can. And you can see we're getting a good apoapsis, which means we need to go up and then sideways, because we are flying pretty darn fast. Obtained a maximum orbital velocity of about 4,800 meters per second. Fabulous. Yeah, so the real Bumper-WAC rocket was kind of a fascinating thing, where it was basically just the Wack Corporal stacked on top of the V2. They had like some fin. The fins were kind of slotted into, not a fairing, but into a little like nose cone thing. And then there were some later iterations where they took the fins away. But anyways, we obviously didn't use fins at all, because I did not find them to be at all necessary. This, the Bumper-WAC rocket, the historical one, proved the ability to do staged rocketry, which was, you know, a big thing. Look at that. We nailed our downrange distance LV development. Fantastic. That gets us some stuff, and we're going to be hitting some more milestones as well, I think, on the way. But yeah, it proved that staged rocketry would work with multiple fueled stages. And this is one of the earlier tests to do that. So anyways, that's kind of the inspiration for this mission. So let's go ahead and time warp forward a little bit and see what our downrange distance total gets to be. Okay, in about 15 seconds, this rocket is about to hit the atmosphere, and we have gotten 2.86 million meters. That's going to be close. So we're hoping now that this does not break up in the upper atmosphere long enough for us to get another 100,000 meters, I think. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping. And if not, then I guess we've got some more work to do on upgrading this this vehicle. But it did hit our development contract, which is fantastic, and that's what the purpose of that is to just keep extending these out and testing and testing and testing. Oh my god, we're getting so close, but we're starting to heat up. 0.98, 0.99. Oh, hey, did I do it? I did it. And only just. All right, well, look at that series of contract complete. We hit 3,000 meters per second, 300 kilometers, completed the development contract, 400 kilometers, 500 kilometers, 600 kilometers, 700.0001 kilometers, 800 kilometers, and the downrange milestone of 3,000 kilometers downrange. Fantastic. And you'll see that left us with 85,000 funds. Fantastic. All right, so cool. Let's see what this unlocks for us. All right, completing the downrange milestone gets us the unlock of first artificial satellite, which is going to be kind of a different sort of thing because yeah, let's go ahead and just kind of go through this. We need to place an object in orbit with a perigee of at least 150 kilometers. So, you know, actually in orbit. And we have a time limit for this contract. So we need to actually be really careful about when we pull the trigger on this. I think we're really close, but we need to like go down the checklist. Because when you accept this contract, we can't do any more sounding rocket contracts. We're kind of dedicated and we need to get to it. They also are going to give us 64,000 funds, which will help. But once you accept the contract, you have 730 days to complete the contract. So it doesn't matter, like this is never going to expire. We're always going to have this available. But once we accept it, we only have a little bit more than 2 years to nail it down. So that's us saying to the world, we are going to get into orbit before the Russians and Sputnik and that whole thing. Even though we might use something that looks a lot like Sputnik. Don't worry about that. And if we don't do that, then everybody goes, boo! You did a bad thing, and you're going to lose all of your reputation and a whole bunch of money also, which will be just terrible. So that's the big one. This is our guiding star for what we're going toward. So that looks like the only thing that's really new as far as contracts and things that we should be working towards. The sounding rocket contract collection is basically as it has been so far, and you know, we can still do more downrange sounding rockets and basically make a decent amount of money because it costs us about 1,000 funds to fire off one of those Bumper-WACs, and it'll get us back about 10,000. So we can make some money doing this, but it's kind of small potatoes for what we need to be doing. And meanwhile, we actually have some new capability coming up pretty soon. In about 50 more days, we are going to get early material science finished, which I'm super excited about because that is going to let us get Tank 2, which is going to make everything better. Make all of our existing designs better by using new tankage. Another thing that I want to look into, making sure that we get, is Avionics prototypes, which I think is on our short list of things to get, which is going to give us things such as, like I said, the Sputnik satellite parts. We are going to need this kind of avionics and guidance to actually get a rocket in orbit, because this whole spin stabilized unguided dumb rocketry thing is just not going to cut it when we're getting into orbit. So that's something for us to, or for me to make sure that we have coming up soon. We're also going to very much want some of these engines in the basic rocketry node. Like for example, this alphabet soup of acronym is what was used by the Redstone short-range ballistic pistol, which is a foundational part for a lot of the early orbital class rockets that the US put together. So this is going to be kind of a foundational part that we're going to want to be using soon. And I'm excited to be moving to that from my little Russian hybrid mode that I've been doing. Because here's another Russian rocket that we might be using, and I like the idea of using all US rockets, but I'm still going to be going gameplay first and mixing and matching. When we open up early materials science, we can see that the tank 2 is going to cost us 10,000 funds to unlock, so that's going to be fairly expensive. And I want to look at what the other items that I'm going to need and what they're going to cost, because yeah, these satellite bit unlocks, the early guidance, avionics, and that sort of thing is going to cost me another 10 or 20,000. So I need to make sure that I'm saving enough money to unlock these things. These part unlocks are getting really hairy, like 35,000 for this solid rocket booster. The redstone power plant is going to be something like 43,000 funds. So yeah, the numbers are starting to get very, very large, and yeah, we're going to need to be careful about what I spend, because as I mentioned before, I'm able to earn about 8,000 funds per sounding rocket if I'm just grinding it out, but we're going to need to make one big leap, so I need to be careful not to spend too much. That said, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend 1 point on R&D to increase that, make that go a little bit faster. 8 is a lovely number, I guess, and that gets us our early material science in 43 days and turns down some of the longer nodes to 555 days. It's better if I didn't have to take the better part of 2 years to research some of these things, but such as it is, we just need more money, more money. So there's 43 days until early material science is done, and at that point we're going to basically be retooling everything, so there's not really any point in building something ahead of that, but let's go ahead and see what we can do. And wouldn't you know it, we were able to get an AJ1027 Aero B done in 47 days, which will be right after our material science, which is perfect, and so we're able to do a sounding rocket contract. You've seen about 1 million of those, so I'll probably only show you that if like it explodes or something really interesting happens. But yeah, so that should get us a little bit of extra money as we are going into this next phase. And it's quite important to keep my VAB moving. So yeah, we were able to get 92% of a rocket finished to get a contract finished just in the time that it took us to time warp to the end of this science. So yeah. Trying to keep everything moving in a forward pace. I'm off of the rails of any guidance at this point, and I'm just kind of trying to do my best. So yeah, we'll see how that works, and hopefully I don't completely fail out. But now here we are with the all-important early material science. I'm super stoked about what this means for us. So yeah, that gets us Tank 2, a modular booster tank that I'm probably not going to buy, a spherical tank that I'm probably not going to buy yet. That's something that's probably useful, but let's get this decoupler. I do love decouplers. We have some static stock tanks that I'm not that interested in. We're all about the procedurals here. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get that. Thank you very much. There we go. Yeah, so let's see what this does for us. With the advent of Procedural Tank 2, that's going to change pretty much all of our designs and make it so that it's not so easy to just swap in additional parts. We're going to have to kind of go from scratch a little bit, which will help you identify things like the fact that this nose cone has had extra sounding rocket payload in it the whole time that I've been packing this part full of sounding rocket parts. So yeah, that's pretty good. And a good reason to revisit your designs from time to time. So let's go ahead and do some fixes on this. What I think we can do at this point, we're going to throw this away, throw the whole nose cone away because it's bad and should feel bad. We'll slap on a brand new one. We would like that to be, no, smaller, not larger. 3.8 millimeters, so 380 millimeters that is. And we'll go 1.5 meters long, which we already have tooled. So that's what this is supposed to be. I'm sure I've messed things up over time, so that's why things are as weird as they are. So this is a Tank 1, which I don't think it's supposed to be. I think we're supposed to be using the, not the labeled Tank 1, Tank 2, but the procedural tank. So let's do that, yeah, because you can go ahead and pick, oh, I picked the service module, procedural tank, and you can put Tank 2 high pressure, and that can be your sounding rocket payload. Actually, look at that. You can't put sounding rocket payload in a Tank 2. I guess the game figures that you don't need that hack anymore. So what you actually need at that point, I believe, is the service module, which, yeah, is just service module 1 and is pretty atrocious. Although I guess you could just use a tank 1 on here. So yeah, anyways, we'll do that with sounding rocket payload, get a pretty familiar amount. Then we stick this back on here, and now here's where things get more interesting. So we're going to change this to tank 2 high pressure, and we are going to fill that tank. I am going to just put a B on the end of here just so I can differentiate. But yeah, so we have about the same amount of fuel here, and we have 2,823 meters per second of delta V. If this was a tank 1, even with everything else being exactly the same, we're looking at 2,514 meters per second of delta V, so we get a 300 or so meter per second boost on this rocket alone just by changing up to tank 2. So that is the power of tank 2. That is what we've been waiting for to start helping us push towards orbital rocketry. So this is kind of just a demonstration of this. I'm not sure that we're actually going to use this, but let's go ahead and save it anyways. Just overwrite the old one, and we can, yeah, and so this will just be, if we need to use this again, we can use this. I'm not sure that we will, but that is, yeah, that is tooled for the new tank type. And so I'm not planning on going through rocket by rocket and part by part to show you the upgrade, but that, I just wanted to show you the process, and now we're gonna go figure out what we're gonna do next. All right, so in further news of research nodes that we have finished, I have just gotten the early tracking systems node unlocked, just like I was hoping to get, and that gets us an upgrade to our procedural avionics, which I definitely thought did more than it actually does. This is not actually an upgrade that gets you any kind of control, but it does upgrade your science core procedural avionics, which we've been using a lot of the built-in ones, I guess, which are fine, I think, and I guess are, you know, perfectly reasonable to use. But as far as I understand it, the developers have intended that procedural is the way that everything is balanced around. So that is the type of avionics that everything is balanced to use. So for the exact same size of probe core, science probe core, this is my start node version. It has 23.6% avionics utilization because it actually matters how big your probe core is. It actually matters how much space you use to fit all that computer technology inside, and you can cram more into a smaller space, but that is going to cost you in efficiency. But it uses 100 watts of power, and it weighs 58 kilograms, whereas the exact same size of the next node is 20.6% utilized, so slightly better utilization, half the power consumption, and 20 kilograms less for the exact same size of avionics. So yeah, that's a useful thing to keep things small for our probes going forward. And the next thing I have completed is the X1 XLR11-RM5 space plane, which definitely needs a snappier name. But yeah, we've got that coming up, so I am going to go ahead and do some astronaut training. Mission X1. Let's say Sally and Rostislav. Sure, why don't you go ahead and take the course, and we will get you ready to fly. All right, here is Sally Bradley. We have released from the air launch vehicle, and we are now ascending rapidly in the acronym soup of a space plane that is much more powerful. Look at how this thing is pushing nearly at surface level thrust, or surface level, or 1.0 surface level thrust as far as thrust to weight ratio. So we are going to very easily get up to the 20,000 meter altitude that is required by this experimental rocket plane's contract. So we are just kind of pushing on up, and I think, whoa, a little wobble there. I think the real trick is going to be figuring out how to get this thing home without tearing it apart. All right, so we are getting close to our mission ceiling, so I am kind of leveling off just a little bit. because we've just about there. We've hit our speed and we have hit our altitude. So yeah, let's just go ahead and cut that engine and see how far we have to go to glide. So yeah, this thing has really cool performance, but it is terrifying. Mostly because of that fact. So yeah, now it's just going to be me trying to glide this back home. We still have a good minute worth of fuel, so I should be able to make it back. So yeah, I'll see you when we get closer to the coast. All right, future me here for just a second. I just wanted to point out that this is the point that everything went terribly, terribly wrong. I put in that vertical speed limit, and clearly that is what made the plane flip out crazy-like, and I was just never able to get control back. However, I was incredibly confused about what and why this was happening, so let's get back to me being bewildered. Autopilot, why have you done this to me? Yeah, I don't know what it is with the autopilot on this vehicle, but it has put me into, or I have put it into a horrible flat spin. And I may or may not be able to get out of this. I'm not still fighting it, am I? Yeah, I'm not sure what the right answer is to get out of this deadly, deadly spin. I only have 8 kilometers left that I'm above the ground. And I'm not sure that I'm gonna get out. Here, we're firing this engine one more time. Last ditch effort. Pull it up, pull it up. I don't care which way you go, just go up. 4 kilometers. Three and a half. Oh man. Okay, that's it. We are just pulling the... I am pulling the parachute and we are just about out of fuel, so... Oh man, I don't know what I did with that, but that was not great. Whew. So, we're just going to call that some kind of avionics failure, or more likely it's user error, but I'm going to put on the report that that was an avionics failure. And hopefully Sally is going to get home, and it would be really nice if this plane survives the landing, but man, no idea. Gosh, I don't know what I did there. That was so catastrophic, but now I guess we're going to see if my parachute placement was okay. Alright, wheels down with the abject hope that they break the surface tension of the water, not that that's a thing in KSP. And yeah, both engines sheared off. They must have an incredibly low impact threshold. So, well, the most important thing is Sally is coming home, and so is most of this plane. Well, in any case, that got us a couple more contracts. We nailed our crude altitude record of 20 kilometers, our speed record of 600 meters per second, because that thing hauls. And also an experimental rocket plane successful flight. And that leaves us with the very last one. We want to get a crewed vessel to 28 kilometers, and if you remember, that is just below our 30 kilometer not pressurized ceiling. So because the cockpit is not pressurized, that's about as high as we're going to be able to go, and we need to get to 700 meters per second, which I think is not going to be a problem with our acronym plane. Alright, so assessing the damage, it looks pretty darn bad when the engines come clean off. Yeah, just to double check, tolerance is 5 meter per second impact, so I could try to set the parachute to have a touchdown speed of 4 meter per second. And then apply that, and that makes it fairly expensive if we go just based on... Oh, wait, hold on. I need to put the engine back on also. But yeah, anyways, yeah, it's pretty darn expensive to replace these engines all the time. We actually are only getting about 10% credit right now, which is not awesome, but... you know, is what it is. It gets us 185 days as opposed to the full 230 or so. But now that the engines are back on and the weight is correct, I'm going to go ahead and change the material. Silk's fine, but we want a touchdown speed of 4 meters per second based on the dry mass of this vessel. And we can have the full deployment at about 500 meters, with a pre-deployment at 1,500 meters. And so we're going to apply that. That increases the price. Mass of the craft was too high and the parachutes have been set at their limit. Okay, so I'm asking too much of this parachute. Maybe if I change it to nylon, apply settings. Oh my god, that's really expensive. 623. Wow, that is bonkers. Okay, so if I go back to 6 meters per second, silk. Yeah, going from 6 meters per second to 4 meters per second is dramatic. So what I think I'm going to do is just not stress that much about out about making this safe for water landings. If I have to bail out over the ocean, then I've already screwed up enough that it's, you know, something I'm going to have to fix with a lot of money and time. And all of these edits have once again pushed this up to 0%. So I might as well just scrap this whole thing and start over. Sigh. But it's fine. This is just the learning process of me being bad at planes. All right, and so between the our big spaceplane contract and the AJ-10s that I've been launching kind of on repeat to make sure my VAB was always in use, we have another 100,000 funds, which means we have some upgrades to do. So we're just going to put one more point into R&D to keep that moving a little bit faster, because that is our bottleneck. But we want to maintain some funds to do unlocks as they come up. Next up is going to be early science, and then avionics prototypes and supersonic flight. Avionics prototypes is going to cost us 10 or 20,000. Early science just 5, and then supersonic flight could potentially cost us just another 10,000. So let's see, what is that? 10. I don't know, we'll call that 20 or 30, another 5. So yeah, we can spend another maybe 2 points, get us down to 60,000 to continue accelerating our program forward. So we're going to do one more point into science. That gets us 10 points in R&D, which I'm pretty stoked about. Let's see, but that's still not enough. It's still so darn slow. So let's go ahead and put one more point. Well, it's not that slow. To be perfectly honest, that's actually a good point to leave it. So I'm going to put a point into the vehicle assembly building to keep that moving forward as well, because I want to, yeah, we have a lot to keep working on. So that is actually going to do it for us for now. Lots to look forward to, but we will be kind of retooling and figuring out how we can move forward, because we're just waiting on our space plane to be ready again, which is going to be, you know, the better part of a year. So we have some vehicle assembly building shenanigans that we'll be doing in the meantime. So in any case, if you guys like this episode, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what your feedback is below. I do love hearing from you all, and I'll see you next time.